What's up, everybody? This is Aaron from Aaron's Audio Corner, and today I'm going to review the SVS SB-2000 Pro and the SB-3000. Now, these are the subwoofers that are over this shoulder of mine right here. Now, I'm doing this test as a versus because I have actually seen where people have asked what the differences are, and I do have to shout out my friends at Daily Hi-Fi who gave me the suggestion to do a shootout type video. And when I took their advice and I went and looked to see, hey, have people been asking about the comparison? Well, I found out there were a lot of people actually asking about it, which, I didn't think people would compare these two subwoofers, but I guess they really want to know, what you're getting for the extra $200 upgrading from the SB-2000 Pro to the SB-3000. And that's what I'm going to talk about today in this review. And I want to provide you guys with some sense of where your money is going, not just in terms of size, but output, and then help you figure out what's going to work out better for you. I know a lot of people are going to wonder right off the bat, so I'm going to go ahead and knock this out. I don't do sound demos. I certainly don't do them for subwoofers. And I really am light on the subjective interpretation of subwoofers. I mean, I certainly listen to the subwoofers and demo them in different, rooms and situations and play around with them, move them around, things like that. But subwoofers are so very, very room dependent upon how they interact that I can tell you one thing and it could be entirely different. And this isn't like loudspeakers. Loudspeakers aren't as room dependent, but subwoofers absolutely are. So I'm not going to get into the whole, this thing was fast or transparent or any of those buzzwords that audiophiles like to throw around because, frankly, subwoofers move air and you care about what the response is in your room and you have to move them around to find the ideal location. My ideal location could be your worst location. So with that said, I'm not going to talk about subjective performance other than just to say that when I've listened to these subwoofers, I liked them a lot. I've demoed them with the KEF R3, which I recently reviewed, and I'll throw a link up here somewhere. And I also have demoed them with the JBL HDI 3800s, which, don't necessarily need a subwoofer, but they do benefit from one. So I've been lucky enough to have these two subwoofers around and throw them into the mix in a couple different systems, as well as some other ones, which I can't even recall at this point, to be honest with you. The thing that you'll notice off the bat is, let's see here. Yeah, the white one is the SB-2000 Pro, and it's small. Both of these subwoofers are relatively small, and they are certainly smaller than the ported subwoofers that I've tested from SVS or Monoprice. These things are, I mean, they're babies, relatively speaking, and that's a good thing because you can put them pretty much wherever you want, and they have come in different finishes. This one, like I said, has the white finish, and then the other one has the black gloss finish. I love the look of them, but dadgummit, I always trying to clean my fingerprints off of them. Um, One thing that I also really like about these subwoofers is they come with the built-in Bluetooth ability to connect to their app, the SVS app, which let me see if I can pull this up real fast and show you guys here. Now, I'll throw up a couple pictures of this, as I'm going through my review on my website, but the app is a great thing because it allows you to tweak and tune the settings of the subwoofer from your listening position rather than sitting down and then listening and then having to get back up and adjust something, especially when you're talking about not just levels, but the phase or the delay adjustments for time delay to try to integrate your subwoofer to your mains. You really need the ability to sit and listen if you're not going to measure with a RTA system. And it's it's just a great thing to have. I can't tell you the number of times that I've, gone to a subwoofer and made an adjustment and then come back and sat down and I'm like, well, okay, what was I listening for? Or I can't really tell the difference because it's not instantaneous. But with the app, you can just make an instantaneous change and you can tell right away. And then you can also save off some settings. And within the app, you have, like I mentioned, you have the phase slash time delay, you have levels, you have parametric equalization. You have 3 bands of parametric equalization, which in my case, when I was listening to the KEF R3, I used these subwoofers to supplement the output. I used 2 bands of those 3 and tamed the room modes really quickly and really easily. And it made the system just come to life. The DSP built into these is really and truly just a great thing. Now, having said that, if you have something like Dirac Live or you have some kind of really good home automation, not home automation, but stereo automation and optimization suite of software or hardware, then you may or may not need the additional DSP that's built into this app. But if you're just listening to these in stereo and you're one of these purists and you don't want to have a lot of extra things going through the signal path, then this subwoofer really is a great thing to have with its internal DSP, because you can make just a few changes and take your system from sounding okay to incredible. And I'm not just saying that. If you know how to set up time delay, phase integration with your mains, you really and truly can take just a run-of-the-mill sounding system to something that far exceeds typical expectation. Now, part of my testing that I do when I get into it is I do frequency response testing, but okay, the other thing I do is the CEA 2010A and 2010B testing. Now, that is a metric of determining how much the maximum SPL is for a given frequency, and it's done at different frequencies from low to, mid-low, like 150, 60, something like that. And when you do that testing, there are two different rounds of doing that now. It used to just be one. It used to be the CEA 2010A, and they've since added the CEA 2010B. Now, as far as I know, I'm still the only person that's doing CEA 2010B testing, and that just gives you a little bit more relaxation on the low frequency as far as distortion threshold. So where CEA 2010A was a little bit more strict in how much distortion you could have, the CEA 2010B is a little bit more relaxed. And I like doing both of those tests because it gives you a good idea of the characterization of the subwoofer's output. And then you can kind of get a feel for, if this subwoofer is better intended for your particular use. I've got the data up on my website, and that's where I currently am at right now. And it is Erin's Audio Corner. I will throw a link down in the description below, so make sure you follow that if you want to pull up this data and look at it a little bit more in detail later. Now, I have some photographs here. The SB-3000 is on the left, and the SB-2000 Pro is on the right. Scrolling down, this will be filled in later. And here's just some stock information that some of it I actually took from the SVS descriptions for their website, because why regenerate the same thing that needs to be said again, right? But again, I want to note that they both feature the built-in DSP with Bluetooth integration, and I love that feature. And then another thing that really comes in handy with SVS is this. It's their long-standing customer service, their 5-year warranty, and their 45-day return, risk-free in-home trial. And I gotta say that when I've approached SVS about doing these reviews and just asking for loaner products, they've always been like, sure. And then I say, okay, I'm done. Here's a link. And I'm not sure that they look at it, honest to goodness. And I don't take that personally. To me, actually, I think that's really cool, because then it says to me that they're not trying to be controlling of a reviewer's input or what a reviewer has to say. And I mean, I don't let anybody control what I do anyway, but just the fact that they're very nonchalant about, what I'm going to say about their product, I think that speaks to how good they already feel about it. And they actually have some data out there. They don't back down for providing data. If you want that, they can get that to you. But like I said, it's already on their website as well. But I think it's worth noting when a company, seems like they're doing the right thing and being right by the customer. So I do want to mention that here. Scrolling down, we can see that I've listed the price for the SB-2000 Pro is $799 in the black ash, and then the gloss like I've got is $899, and then the 3000 is $999 in the black ash, but in the gloss like I've got is $1099. And then some additional pictures we got here. So this is the back of the setup. Now you have some RCA inputs, but you also have just a single LFE input. And then you've got the controls on the back. So yeah, you can control it from the app, but if you really want, if you're just a knucklehead and you like controlling things the hard way, or you lose your phone or something like that, then you've got settings back here that you can also get to. And here are a couple screenshots of the app from my phone, so you can see that, well, I should say loading this up is incredibly easy. It's probably one of the, I got to be honest, when I first downloaded this app and went to fire it up, I thought this is probably suck. This is probably going to take a long time and it's not going to work right the first time. And it didn't do any of those things. It actually fired right up and it came right up. It's never dropped out on me. When I was doing my testing outdoors, I'm about 50 feet or so away from the subwoofer to my computer stand. and the Bluetooth actually reached that far, which allowed me to do some additional testing I'll talk about shortly. So the Bluetooth reach is really quite long. And then you can see on this far right picture, there's the different settings: low pass filter, volume, phase, EQ, room compensation, port tuning, which honestly I didn't even look at that. It probably, I mean, it doesn't apply to this SB because it's not ported. And then just some other things you can say, presets and stuff. So really cool stuff. Test setup conditions. So if you want to know about how I test subwoofers, follow this link. Now, the first thing I did was a frequency response test, and the fact that these two aren't at the same level, don't really worry about that. What we're looking at is just the general trend of the response, and we can see that the SB-3000 is, kind of shelled down in the lower mid bass to sub bass region. And it's not quite as linear as the SB-2000 Pro. So as far as linearity goes, the SB-2000 Pro looks to be the better driver in that regard. And then we go and look at group delay. Frankly, I don't pay any attention to group delay other than at the crossover region where I'm trying to mate it to the mains. And in this case, I'm not seeing any issues in that 50 to 100 hertz region where you might try to integrate that. So, okay, cool. This is for people who are interested in this, but personally, I don't put any stock into it, at least not at this point. This is one thing that I mentioned earlier, the room gain compensation, which can be found on their app. And I think this is kind of neat for people to see. And I think it's useful if you have let's say you live in an apartment and you don't want to bother the neighbors late at night. What you can do is you can basically high pass the response of the subwoofer. So the black is the default gain, no adjustments made. And then the different colors show that as you change the frequency for the room gain compensation, you basically just level off the lower frequency. So that would be, like I said, for somebody who might live in a smaller room or smaller house or something like that. And, they've got neighbors they don't want to bother, or they've got family they don't want to bother late at night. Alternatively, if experiencing a lot of room gain because you got these corner loaded and it's just too much, it's just too boomy or something on the lower end, then you can use this room gain compensation to kind of shelve that down and take care of that issue. And then this is where we get into the real testing. This is my CEA 2010 test results. As I said, you can go to my website. You can read more about this. You can read the the Ford that I have if you want to. But let's just go ahead and get straight into the data. And what I've done is I've taken the tabular data from table format and I've just got it into a plot. Now, this plot, I could not get this thing to produce the way I wanted it to do via my Google spreadsheet doc. It is what it is. But what we can see here is that in the blue, that is the SB-2000 Pro, and then the red is the 3000. And then this is basically telling us that the maximum output for each of these subwoofers, by frequency and by SPL over here, and this is all at 2-meter ground plane, is, let's see, 120 hertz for the SB-3000 at about 32 hertz and above, and then it starts to roll off. And then the SB-2000 it's got an extra peak there, and it actually does pretty well on the lower end. It does better on the low end than well, I won't say better, but as far as linearity goes, it's less linear, but it has more capability on the low end than the SB-3000, which is interesting to note. But once you get above, 30, 40 hertz, there's about a 5 dB difference or so between those two. And then if I go to the CEA 2010B, which is the less restrictive low frequency distortion testing, we can see that the delta is, there's not a huge gap, but there's a decent gap of about 1 or 2 dB on the low frequency end. And as you go to the higher frequency, there's about a 5 dB gap between those two subwoofers. And basically what this tells you is, in my opinion, looking at this data, both subwoofers have no problem at all getting down to 30 hertz with a good bit of SPL. But then once you get below that, that's when they start to roll off. Now, depending on your room, that may or may not be an issue. So if you have a room that has a lot of gain below that point, and actually my room does, I think my room is like plus 6 dB at 30 hertz, which it actually just works out perfect for these subwoofers, ironically. I mean, who would have known, right? But if you're in that situation where, you don't have a lot of room gain, then you're probably going to want to go with a ported subwoofer. A sealed subwoofer, and not necessarily these two, but just in general, a sealed subwoofer is probably not going to be the way you want to go. You're probably going to want to go with the ported subwoofer. But I will say that just looking at these values, I was really impressed. As a matter of fact, I actually tested the SB-3000 3 times total because the first time I tested it, the numbers looked too high. and then I tested it again on a different day, and then I wiped all the settings because I got the same results. I wiped all the settings from my Clipple software, and I reloaded my calibration files, everything, just to make sure that something was, because they just looked too high. And turns out, yeah, man, these are actually the numbers. And there is a discrepancy between mine and James Larson's on Audioholics. And I'm not saying that neither one of us are, necessarily wrong here. I'm just going to say that I trust my data implicitly. So yeah, really, really good numbers here. And then here's some parting random thoughts. So let me see if I can find any notes here that are worth kind of talking about here. I do say that, for only $200 more, the SB-3000 represents a better value to me, but it does have a lot of output. I mean, even in my living room. So my living room is about 20 by 20 feet, but it's open to the kitchen, it's open to a hallway, and it's open to a dining room. So it's basically infinite, if you want to consider it that way, for the subwoofers. And the SB-3000 was plenty. And again, like I said, I have a natural room gain at around 30 hertz with about plus 6 dB, so it filled that in quite nicely. It filled in that lower frequency roll off of the SB-3000 and the 2000 Pro quite nicely. And I'll say that if you are strict on your budget, or you want to go, just because you're really strict on the size, then maybe the SB-2000 Pro would be more adequate for you. Both of them have plenty of output, and I think if you're just trying to get like really, really low frequency extension, then the 3000 is the way to go. Or possibly you'll want to step up to a ported subwoofer, which I tested the SVS PB-2000 Pro, and that tested out really good as well. So that's an option. Let's see what else we got here. I had no complaints when I paired these with the KEF R3 or the JBL HDI 3800. I do mention the variety of DSP features, and I encourage you, if you don't know how to make changes with DSP, you don't know about room real-time analysis, RTA, look into that and understand it. Get you free software. It's Room EQ Wizard, and I provide a link here. And then you can buy a $75 USB microphone. And if you watch a couple YouTube videos on how to set this stuff up, it will be well worth your trouble, well worth your time, and it will allow you to understand and how to better integrate the DSP of these subwoofers into your room to provide you a better response. Do that, okay? Built-in Bluetooth app stuff, I say it's great. I've already talked about that. One thing is, a lot of ported subwoofers, have port resonance. So these being sealed, you don't have any of that. But sometimes you can have, too high Q of response, and you've got a peaky response in the subwoofer. But these subwoofers don't have that. There's no audible resonance, no mechanical issues that I noticed. And again, I just said that I was quite impressed with both subwoofers. I would recommend either one of them if you're looking toward getting something like this. And I really do, encourage you to look at them as an option. I know there's a whole lot of other subwoofers out there, and there's no way I'm ever going to be able to test all of them. I really like what SVS is doing as a company, and I like how they seem to be engineered driven. And yeah, they have really good customer service, a great return policy. So it's basically no risk for you to try it out. I would recommend either one of them. If you have a smaller room, the SB-2000 Pro is going to be adequate. If you have a larger room, then the SB-3000 is probably the way you want to go. The DSP built into it with the Bluetooth app is a godsend, and the price to me seems fair. And again, I don't have the data to stack this up against all the other products that are out there. But if I were in the market for a subwoofer and I wanted a sealed one, then I wouldn't have any qualms about buying one of these. And with that said, I'm out. You guys take care. Oh, sorry. And let me add this as well. When I review this stuff, I'm not getting paid by any companies. Anything that I make, goes back into my website, helps me buy lunch, buy family food, whatever, just be a dude, right? So the money that I make is off YouTube revenue, which is incredibly low, and also Amazon affiliate linking. So I've got some Amazon affiliate links here, and I've also got some SVS affiliate links here. If you guys are considering buying any of this stuff, it would really help me out if you did that through my affiliate links. It doesn't get me a whole lot of money, but it does add up over time. But if you don't want to, that's fine. I'm not pressuring you to. I just really want you to understand why I'm doing that, because I'm not a sellout. It just helps me out. I'm already reviewing this stuff, so why not throw a link up there? And if you don't want to buy it through a link, you don't have to. But if you want to support me that way, I would certainly appreciate it. And with that said, I'm out. I hope you guys appreciate it. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. Talk to you guys later. Peace. And I mentioned that the graphics here, let's just face it, they kind of suck, right? So if you want to go to my website or my actual Google Sheet where all this is pulled from, you just go to that little link here and click that. And here we are. And then I've got a table, right? Now, right now it's filtered down on just these two speakers, and you can unfilter if you want. But before I do that, I'm going to go over to the tab here and look at the graphics here, and then you can just kind of highlight. So for instance, at 40 Hertz, the SB-2000 Pro for the 2010A testing is at 114 dB, but then for the 3000 it's 120 dB. So that's 6 dB higher. That's pretty cool. So again, you can go to this tab for the A, you can go to this tab for the B. You can filter by just clicking this little filter button here, and that unfilters everything. And you can look and see what I've got by going to the corresponding frequency response or the max SPL tabs, and then you got it all here. So if you want to go and do that, you certainly can. I would encourage you to kind of play around with that. Now there is a fellow that is pulling all of this information from my website, from Audioholics, I think Brent Butterworth, everywhere, and he's putting it all into one big spreadsheet document, and I will try to find that and link that in my description below if you want to go to his and have a comparison against, I don't know, man, there's probably like 100 subwoofers or more in that entire sheet, so I'll do that as well.